What we'll cover today, guys, is kind of our mission and why we've implemented the Project Hack. So how did it start? What is Project Hack? Kind of the event aims and how the challenges are developed. So how we kind of develop the use cases and kind of bring them to the table for the teams to work on. Getting started. So people who, if it's their first time at the hackathons, how can you get started in preparing for Project Hack 8? We'll look at previous hack solutions and how the teams have prepared and tackled the challenges before. And then we'll look at insights from a data scientist. So kind of why does the hackathon apply to data science professionals or anyone within data and why they should attend. And then we'll look at Project Hack A. We'll look at what we've implemented, which is a bit different from what we've done before. And then we'll hold a Q&A. So the speakers for today's events, we'll have Katie McLaughlin from Jacob, she's a transport planner, Andrew Dickinson from Costain, Pedro Burio from Baker Hughes, Jamie from Jacobs and the reporting lead for Palace of Westminster, and then our team at Projecting Success. So we'll have Ben Morris, data scientist, me, Yoshi Sonak, of course, Matt Paver, a data analyst, and John Jenkins, who's also a data analyst. So our mission. So the reason why we started Project Hack is that we saw that only around 50% of projects are completed on time and slightly more delivered within the original budget. So this is a situation that has hardly changed in nearly a decade now. And it is a challenge which is ideally suited to advanced data analytics methods. Yet whilst data analytics is getting traction across the board that we can see in various sectors, the project delivery profession is a relatively late adopter. So as a community, together, we're on a mission to change this and shape a new future, a future that has the potential to save society hundreds of billions and transform how projects are managed so we can optimize project delivery in the future. The aims of the hackathon. So the aims of the hack, we have a few aims. So start to explore methods and tools to transform how insights and value can be extracted from project data, ranging from risk and schedule data through to on-site presence of personnel. Enable delivery professionals to understand the predisposition of projects to specific challenges, to predict them arising and take action to avoid the avoidable. So the sort of mitigation strategies that we can put in place to prevent that from happening. And most importantly, to ignite the professional imagination on what can be achieved and shape the future of project delivery. So the hackathon is only 2 days, and what can be achieved within those 2 days is remarkable. But think if we can implement that within 2 days, what can we implement when we have a lot more time on our hands with a more collaborative effort, with everyone kind of piling in and gaining traction. So what is Project Hack? So what exactly is it? It's a 2-day virtual event where attendees are provided with a host of real project challenges set by numerous organizations across various sectors. Once live and in the virtual environment, so once you've signed up and it'll be held within Teams, you'll be presented as part of the main presentation, all the challenges, and along with this will be the problem statements and the skills required to produce a solution. So once we list all the challenges, yourselves can allocate yourselves to different teams. So pick the challenge that you want to tackle, discuss and communicate and network with those who are also in the call and form teams with other members at the event. Now, this is always quite a daunting part of the hackathon with people, especially within the virtual environment. It's very difficult to try and build rapport and understand kind of who's a project analyst, who's a data specialist, who's a project professional. But there's always a way to try and talk and discuss with everyone who's within the call. So we'll have guys who will help you also develop that as well. So each team starts at 11 a.m. on the first day. That's when the challenges start, and they must be finished by 5 p.m. on the second day. Now, I say first day and second day because the hackathons were typically on the weekends, but we are now looking to implement hackathons and alternate between the weekends and the weekdays. So it kind of is more suited to everyone else who can't make the weekends, for example. At the deadline, teams must have a completed solution and a recorded pitch presentation. So once you've identified your challenge, you'll work within your teams to kind of develop your solutions. You then must record a pitch presentation, which is typically 5 minutes long. Now you can find examples of these within the YouTube channel, but typically what it is identifying and kind of building your business case, how you went about tackling your challenge, what you did and kind of what you came up with, what you couldn't answer and what you would do if you had more time in the future. And again, we'll show examples of these throughout today's call. Once you've done that, you will present that pitch. Lucky for you, if it was in the physical environment and Microsoft Reactor, it will be a live pitch to a panel of judges. As it's now virtual, if you can record those presentations, we'll then pass them to the judges. So there'll be thought leaders in project delivery or data from various sectors, various roles. They will review the pitches and mark on a set criteria that we give them, which will release and share prior to the event, so you understand what you are being marked on. And then we'll announce the winners on the following meetup or a couple of days after the event. And then the prizes will be allocated to the winners, so we'll be in touch with those. And tech support. So throughout the hackathon, there will be tech support at all times to support you and your team to work on your challenges if you get stuck, and there'll be support there to kind of help you find your way. And as you can see on the image on the right, we'll be with Microsoft Teams, and then we'll just progress through to the final day. So I'll now move on to how the challenges are developed. So I will pass over to my colleague, Ben Morris.
Yeah, thanks, Yoshi. Hi, everyone. So my name's Ben, and I'm involved in kind of leading the challenge development process for Project Hack. So today I'm going to kind of walk through how this challenge development process works from the organizer's perspective. So the kind of general steps we go through to develop a challenge. And then Pedro from Baker Hughes is going to take you through the same process from a challenge owner or data provider's side of things. So you get to kind of see both sides of the coin. Essentially, the process involved in developing a challenge is slightly different each time, but the steps I'm going to kind of walk through today are the kind of generic steps that we try to follow each time to develop the challenges that are kind of most interesting and also most beneficial to solve. So the first kind of step is around the initial discussion and then the problem statement capture. So Yoshi, if you can jump to the next slide, please. Yep. Thank you. So essentially, the initial discussion will take place between us and a partner organisation, and essentially that's where we'll try and identify the area of interest or the area they want to focus on and potentially solve problems within. So to give an example on the slide, if an area chosen was RFIs, and for anyone who doesn't know, RFIs are requests for information. So these are usually used within a project to clarify design information. So you would submit an RFI to request more information about a certain design. Usually this area of focus comes from leaders within that organization. So based on their kind of strategy and their roadmap, they'll identify certain areas that they want to focus on, and that will give us the kind of start of the initial discussion. From that kind of epic, so in our case RFIs, we would then break that down into use cases, and again, to give a couple of examples with kind of regards to RFIs, this could be kind of the causality of RFIs, so what's causing them, and then also understanding the impact of them. So can we measure what the impact of an RFI is? From these use cases, we then break that down further into problem statements, and essentially each problem statement is what we're going to try and solve in a hackathon challenge. So you can see a couple of examples of potential problem statements related to each use case there. So example, with kind of respect to the impact of RFIs, maybe we want to understand the cost of an RFI and understand what that is. So essentially this kind of initial discussion and problem statement capture involves breaking down that larger epic into a series of problem statements that we can take forward to a hackathon and try and develop solutions to within our challenge. So if you could jump to the next slide, please, Yoshi. So taking on the left-hand side, the problem statements that we've worked up. So we have 3 kind of examples there. The next step involves us kind of working to develop some potential solution concepts to those, or that would solve those problem statements. So I've just chucked a couple of examples on there, obviously not kind of accurate for those problem statements, but that solution concept could be a Power BI dashboard that helps you to kind of visualize and really interrogate a certain data set that may help you to solve that problem statement. It could be a machine learning model, it could be a data collection app, it could be some statistical insights. Obviously, it depends on the problem as to what potential solution could be used to solve that. So that's the next stage. And then once we've kind of identified what those solution concepts look like, we then move on to kind of understanding the data that we may need to, or that we do need to solve that problem. So in our example at the top, we would, to be able to understand the kind of impact of RFIs and the number of RFIs by kind of project type, we need to be looking at RFI data and then also some project data. So maybe the value of projects, the sector, the type of project, that type of thing. The second example, where we wanted to understand the cost of RFIs, we probably need to look at, again, RFI data, but we also need to look at some cost data to start to understand how we can measure the cost of those RFIs. Once we've identified the data needed to potentially solve a solution, we then need to go along and do a sort of data discovery phase. So we then work with that data provider or the challenge provider, and work with them to kind of categorize their data and understand the quality, the volume, the accessibility, and just understand a lot more about the data they have available. I've coloured in the text there just to give an example, but in that case, it might be that we kind of learn that their RFI data and their schedule data is of good quality. It's quite easy to access. It's maybe held in certain systems like Viewpoint or P6 that make it really easy to access. It's good quality. So in that case, it's really right to develop a challenge from. It could be that the project data is quite siloed. It's available, but it's quite difficult to access. It's quite a manual process. And then potentially the cost data, maybe the organization don't want to share that, even in an anonymized form. So in that case, we would have to kind of put that problem off to potentially a future hack or something that they solve internally. So we use that data discovery phase to kind of identify what problems we are able to solve at the hack, and then which problems we potentially have to push forward to a future hack, or that company would then kind of go away and solve internally. So once we've kind of completed that data discovery phase, we can move on to the next part, which is kind of around prioritizing the problem statements and revising them based on the data discovery and the solution kind of concept development. So this involves kind of going back to the domain experts, understanding which of the problem statements that we can actually solve would be kind of most impactful for them, and which ones are really a priority that they want to see kind of developed first. And then once we understand that priority, we can kind of understand where we're going to solve that problem. So it could be that our first one around understanding some of the causality of RFIs, we take forward to Hack 8, and that's going to be a challenge in Hack 8. And then it could be that our challenge around understanding kind of the delays that RFIs cause, we're then going to take forward to a future hack kind of later on in the year. So this is all around, effectively prioritizing our problem statements, understanding what order we kind of want to tackle them in, and what's going to be most kind of beneficial for the business. And then moving on from this stage, the next step we have is kind of forming the challenge. So at this point, we've got a problem statement, we have a solution concept, and we've got a good understanding of the data that's available to us. The next part is kind of just fleshing out the details of this challenge, so providing a more detailed description, giving some examples of what the outputs could look like. So if the potential solution was a kind of data collection app, then maybe we specify the structure of the data that we want to collect, that type of thing, and sort of build out the details to give the team that are going to tackle this challenge a good idea of what they want to do or what is wanted by them. And give them a bit of a guide as to where they should go within the hack. And then we also look at the data in a bit more detail, and give a bit of a description of the data sets, so that the team aren't spending kind of several hours on the Saturday just trying to understand what the data is, what all the fields mean. So by kind of providing them with that information, it gives them a better start. And then once we've formed the details of the challenge, the last stage is the kind of all around the data, so the cleaning and the anonymization of the data. This stage varies hugely between challenges. So some data providers like to do this all in-house, so they like to clean the data, anonymize it themselves, and then just provide us with the anonymized data that we will then share with the participants at the hack. Other organizations ask us to do this for them, so it could be everything from extracting the data through kind of APIs or other sources, cleaning and anonymizing the data and checking it kind of past them and making sure they're happy with the steps we've taken before sharing it at the hackathon. In terms of the kind of steps involved, again, it varies a lot depending on the data, where it's stored, the type of data. There's loads of variables in this stage. In terms of accessing the data, so this depends a lot upon the system that the data is stored in. Some systems are obviously very easy to access, others are not. If we have siloed data sources, then again that produces another sort of hurdle and potentially makes it a more manual process. In terms of anonymizing the data, all kind of personal identifiable information has to be removed for kind of GDPR purposes. So any names, email addresses, locations, that type of thing. Other sensitive data, so this could be things like project name, client name, that type of thing. If it's needed for the challenge, then we would pseudonymize this. We'd replace it with a code, so project 1, project 2, etc. If it's not needed, then obviously we can just take this information out and provide the data without that, without those variables included. And then in terms of cleaning the data, we like to kind of make sure that the data is in a sort of reasonably clean format for the hackathon, so that the team aren't spending the whole weekend just preparing the data and not actually getting on with developing the solution. Again, cleaning the data is hugely variable depending on the type of data we have and where it's come from. But if we've got kind of data from multiple sources, this could be looking at the consistency, maybe some of the fields are measured in different units, matching up data types, kind of cleaning dates, that type of thing. But obviously that varies massively depending on the type of data we have. And then if you could jump to the next slide, please, Yoshi. Thank you. So the last one for me here is just a couple of points around what makes a good challenge. So firstly, well-defined problem statements. So and this is really important. So I think a lot of people kind of use the data they have and try and solve a problem with it, but I think it's key to look at that kind of the other way around. So you understand what it is, what the problem is that you're trying to solve. And then from there, you kind of identify the potential solution concepts and identify the data needed to solve that problem. But defining that problem statement clearly then makes the rest of the process a lot easier. Secondly, identifying key stakeholders and business buy-in. So really need to identify kind of those domain experts that are going to help you to kind of really shape the challenge and ensure it's actually useful. And is actually something that's going to be used and is going to work within the business. So yeah, identifying the key stakeholders and domain experts, getting them on board, getting them kind of buying into the hackathon, understanding what it is, understanding what we're trying to do, and giving us that domain expertise when we develop the challenge. The third point there around data, so available and accessible data is obviously important. If we can't access the data, then we can't have a challenge. But we've got plenty of examples where potentially the data, either quality or volume or accessibility, isn't there currently, but we can kind of keep the idea and keep the problem statement and solution concept and hold it back to a point in time where maybe that data quality is improved or the volume's improved, and we can actually tackle that challenge. The fourth point there is around a solution to that problem that can be developed over a weekend. So obviously the hackathon's only 2 days, and it's all well and good kind of developing solution concepts to all these problems we have, but if it's not a solution that can be developed over a weekend, then it's not that much use for the hack. If we can break it down into a series of challenges, then that's something we can try and do. But if it's something that's going to take kind of weeks and weeks of effort to develop, then it's probably not suitable for a hackathon. And then the final point is just around kind of tangible benefits. So if the businesses that are kind of providing challenges and providing data, if they're not seeing tangible benefits, then there's no reason for them to provide challenges again. So it's important to kind of develop a challenge that is going to actually provide some tangible benefits back to that organization, so they can kind of get some reward for the effort and time they've put in to kind of working with us to develop a challenge. So that's everything from me from a kind of organizer's perspective of developing a challenge. I think I'll pass over to Pedro now, who I think is going to walk you through the same kind of process, but this time from a data provider's point of view.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, we can.
All right. Well, first of all, thanks for the opportunity. What I don't want this to seem is like a perfect template that should be imposed on anyone. It's just based on the experience that I've gone through as a data apprentice into hackathons and what worked for me. And I'll also tell you about the mistakes that I made and the lessons learned, in case this template can help you prepare for a new hackathon. So these are the steps on the top that I followed. The first thing is to define the challenge, and probably this is the hardest one. It needs to be, like I say there, a pain point. By the way, my video is not visible. Should it not be visible, Ben?
No, I think we can just see the PowerPoint.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So the first thing is to make sure to team up, to partner with the department in your organization for which you're going to solve an issue. So this is a common theme across all phases, and this is probably the most important part. If you don't engage with them strongly and get their buying to participate in selecting something that will solve an important issue for them, then everything falls down. And luckily, I was able to find within the planning team in my business, we do large EPC projects, so the planning team is key in our business. And well, they partnered with me and they supported pretty much. Actually, on the second occasion, I improved by partnering even more because one of the lessons learned was that we had not quite solved what they wanted. We solved a different issue in one case. So that's one lesson learned. Make sure that it's clear that you're solving what they want to get solved, and partner with them. Okay, so that's the main theme, and I'll repeat it throughout the presentation. So it needs to be a pain point for them, and the closer you are to the problem, the better. So if by mere luck you happen to be in the department whose issue you're solving, it's even better. Okay, because that way you won't need to ask one expert from that department to be with you in the hackathon. You'll be able to do it yourself. So the closer you are to the issue, the better. And the backlog, yes, that's the other thing. It could be that you want just to solve one issue in one hackathon, but ideally you would have a list of a backlog of issues that you plan to take to not just this one, but the following hackathons. And if done through apprentices, like it was my case, I'm in this project data analyst apprenticeship that Projecting Success is doing, well, then so much the better, because then you can apply what you've learned in the apprenticeship as well. But it's not absolutely necessary. Now, that's the first thing, to partner and select something that is a pain point that will solve them, an important issue. Then, as in every data analyst undertaking, obtaining the data and cleaning it up, that's so important. And it's just phase 2 in this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? But it could be the one that takes you the longest. Well, I can't say much about that, rather than it depends on the data that you're looking at, and it could be very hard to obtain. In my case, it was P6 data, so it wasn't that hard to get in one of the hackathons. In the other one, I required some extraction, some very specialized extractions of curve profiles that a P6 specialist had to do for me. So that's an important phase. After that, and Ben was mentioning it earlier, anonymizing the data was condition sine qua non for my company. Without anonymizing to the full extent, they were not going to let me take the data to a hackathon. They were very, very, reserved about this. So I had to meet with them. So you need to find the right stakeholders, the people with the authority to approve what data can be taken, and different organizations do it differently. So you need to investigate to make sure you're compliant. You don't want to find out later that you've breached some company guidelines on data management. So that's important. Then in that meeting that you hold with those people, you need to decide together with them what needs to be anonymized, which in my case was everything. Basically everything. Everything was a trade secret, even the names of the departments and anything. So we had to anonymize it, which means instead of engineering, manufacturing, sourcing, etc., it was 01, 02, 03, right? Coding instead of names, so that any conclusions that are taken from the hack can only be used internally after de-anonymizing. Okay, so that's a very important phase. What else in that phase? Oh, I did it through Microsoft Access, but you can do through any means. Ideally, SQL can help you a lot. A few SQL sentences, can do that for you. Now, I think Ben mentioned in the challenge page has to be enticing because all this pre-work goes nowhere if then you take it to the hackathon and no hackers want to participate. I was very proud that in my first hack, there were 2 teams who took it, and one of the teams was magnificent, and they finished in 2nd place, which was great. So that's because the presentation that we made was enticing enough. Okay, and it needs to be crystal clear. You can't pretend to go there with internal knowledge, because the hackers, they're not in your company, so they won't know all those smart acronyms that we use every day. It can be very off-putting if you see sentences full of acronyms that you don't understand. So you need to do the grandmother test here, right? It must be so clear that even your grandmother, maybe that's an exaggeration in my case, but would understand it. And the expected outcome, what do you want to get? Ben touched on this thing. And this is one pitfall that where I failed in one case. The expected outcome has to be validated by the department for which you're doing this. So I didn't, I assumed, I made an assumption that I had understood totally what they wanted and went with it. And in one case, it was not good enough. So we are going to repeat it and take it to a new hackathon to really solve the thing that they wanted solved. So that's very important. The expected outcome has to be crystal clear in that presentation. And then the hackathon starts, right? And like I said, in my first hackathon, 2 teams took it. So instead of joining one of them, I kept on moving from one to another. And it's important that at the beginning, you spend quality time explaining everything and solving all their doubts so that they start from a good base. Okay. So you may even prepare, a presentation for that, so that you explain in detail. And that's another lesson learned, is that during the hackathon, there were some questions that were so specialized that I couldn't answer because I'm not a planner. So on the second hackathon, I made sure that this person was available during the hack. And that was very good. He was able to solve at different times, and not the whole weekend, but at different times on both days, he was there and helped clarify the questions. And once the hack is done and the team has provided this outcome, and it could be in the shape of a PDF, a PowerPoint, a Power BI dashboard, codes, coding in Python, all of these things, you need to de-anonymize them, okay? Otherwise, the internal department will say, okay, what is this 1, 2, 3, what are these codes? So you need to translate that internally so that it's compelling, and it drives a message that they understand. And you need to present it in plain terms to them. And potentially, I didn't do this, but well, in fact, I did, because there was one of the hack members was a Projecting Success employee, very nice guy, and he came to the internal presentations. So that's another thing I would advise, if possible, if the hack, if you've, made a good contact with one of the hack members, and he or she is willing to come to your internal presentation, that's an interesting thing to do. And finally, which is something that we're going to do in Hack 9, we are going to revisit one of the challenges because of the error I made in solving something different than what was required. So all of these steps is the template that I followed twice, and the lessons learned that I derived. So I hope it helps.
Excellent. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Pedro. That's excellent. So guys, you can kind of see from this perspective, Ben and Pedro have kind of given insight into how the challenges are developed. So what we'll look onto now is kind of how you would approach the hackathon as an attendee if you were to tackle the challenges. So I'll kind of cover what you need to do before you get started, and also how you can approach the hackathon. So before you get started, I'll kind of touch on kind of the hack rules and kind of what we lay out at the hackathons. So the hackathon is supposed to be a very fun and collaborative and joyful environment. So it's always key to be nice, work collegiately, help each other, because we've all given up, we've all given up our time to be here. In regards to the solutions which come out the back of the hackathons, all teams will take ownership of whatever they have created during the hackathon. And you can choose to make your code available as open source to provide a way for other people to share your vision and contribute to your project. However, choosing to do so is entirely up to you. We do encourage democratizing the solution so we can work collaboratively within it, but that's entirely up to you. Hackathons are like marathons. So they're a 2-day sprint, but for some people who go to compete, there are also others who take time to try and better themselves and build up their skill set. Some are there to just have fun and network. Whatever the reason you are for being at the hackathon, make sure you're upholding that hacker spirit and collaborating with other teams, helping beginners, and again, ultimately having fun. So now, getting started, I will now pass over to Jamie, who will discuss a kind of a high-end level of how you can get started with the hackathon.
So hi, so I'm Jamie. I've attended 2 hacks. I've set 2 challenges at one of the hacks. So it was just to kind of walk you through what I think is a really good approach. So I'm going to kind of take you from when you decided you're going to sacrifice 2 days of your time. You've leapt out of bed on the morning, put the kids out in the garden, the cat's watching Netflix box set on loop. You've listened to all the pleading challenge owners to take up their challenge, and then you're just ready to press the button into that breakout room. And then what happens? And well, one of several things, you could actually end up in a breakout room on your own. But if you do kind of just hang tight, not everyone's quite as quick pressing the button. And if you are actually on your own, then you can obviously go and find another challenge. Probably you'll be faced with sort of 2 to 6 people. If there's any more than 6 in one particular challenge, then the guys from Projecting Success will just come down and open up a few more breakout rooms, so you can have like A, B, C, D, E, have many teams tackling all the one challenge. So, but it's generally between 2 and 6 people are in the team, and it really is down to the nature of the challenge and the skill set, because just having fewer people doesn't necessarily restrict what you can do, as Katie will be demonstrating later, because they came second at the last hack with only 2 people. But generally the median and the maximum is 6 people in a group, and that's just a reference to Ben and James that I was paying attention in your seminars in the intensive week of the apprenticeship. Don't know whether I get any more extra points for that, but that'd be good. The kind of nature of the challenges, there might be the odd one that's a really technical one where the technical guys are just going to come and smash it, or there might be one that's on a specific kind of topic. And ones I'm thinking of are probably like the risk, because there's just a bunch of risk people that are just bringing new risk challenges again and again, so they can develop out their expertise in terms of the analytics specifically on risk. And so probably having a technical background or a background just on that subject would help. You can easily spot those, but like 90% of all the challenges are just like a microcosm of how we actually deliver project data analytics in the real world. That you'll have a technical element, whether that's the solutions and the platforms. You'll have like the translators, the data analysts that can understand a bit of the technical side, can transform and play with the data, but also cognizant of where it needs to be delivered. And then in the real world, you'd have like the end users, the managers, and all those people need to work together to get any value out of it. If you flip that back into the hack, then most of them would have a technical element, would have some data analysis, and then instead of the end users, you've got the people who are going to be kind of pulling the team together and making sure that the work is on time, it's focused on what the challenge is, and preparing the presentation. So everyone is going to be busy, but it also means that there's that nice spectrum of people who are really kind of technically savvy to those that are really interested. Everyone can contribute and kind of find their place in the team. And actually having been an owner on one of the challenges, so I could drop in and drop out, actually the people who got the most were the ones that had turned up going, yeah, all talking about data and transforming and the technical stuff, but I just want to find out how it works, didn't have a background in it, but really learned a lot and took a lot of confidence away, and they did contribute a lot. So as I say, everyone can make a contribution to it and find their place in the hack. So for me, that was really good to see. So now if we go on, you've got your team, you're all ready to crack on, and what I've kind of set is like the golden hour, and this is really that first hour where you can set the pace and the structure of your team in terms of tackling the challenge. So I would say it's probably more pivoting towards the kind of agile approach, but the agile approach just means kind of short, sharp activities that you can do, and then you can come back and reassess where you are, and then kind of plan on spending an hour trying to plan all the nuances of the hack. Just doesn't work in this environment. So you know, that first hour where you're doing introductions, and you know, just be honest, you know, if you want to come and you join that because you wanted to be in the platforms and the technical side, and you want to just really crack on with that. If you wanted to do some of the data or the storytelling or the transformation, or if you know, just you've just got general interest in the challenge, but you know, you're not on the technical side, just so you can kind of see how that dynamic in the group is going to work. But as I say, everyone will find things to do for 2 days, don't worry. Then just have a quick brainstorm on what you think the challenge involves, and then it's worth, after you've done that, then people to go and have a look at what the software and the platforms are they going to use it. Are there any issues with that? Do you have any access issues? You know, just making sure that you can use that as you want. Another one would probably be looking at the data. Do you understand the data? Do you need any more data? And then the other group would probably be just collating all that brainstorming, having a look, starting to think about the presentation and the nuances that the challenge owner has set. Come back together, and then you've got a much better basis for then planning all those activities and going through. At that point, I'll definitely make sure you grab the challenge owner, just so that you're kind of doing what they think they've set as the challenge, which isn't always the case that I found out. As things were slightly more ambiguous than I thought was the way I was reading it. Also, at that point, it would probably be worth seeing if you do require any tech support. So you've got the MVPs from Microsoft, they do get booked up. So it's definitely worth flagging up if you think you're going to need any of those to support you going forward. But then it's just getting in that nice kind of beat where you come together, plan activities, and then work through those activities and then loop back. And the nature of the hack is that you'll probably have to try maybe several attempts before you can get one to smoothly run. So, if you are struggling at all, and I have seen this on a couple of occasions where there's like 5 people watching one person's screen, then I would definitely flag that up to the Protecting Success guys, who can come in and just give you a few pointers in terms of how you can make sure that you're all cracking on. You can then probably start then planning out that first day, take stock at the end of it, and then when you come in the morning on the second day, again, just recap where you think you're going, but really making sure that as that second day progresses, you're focusing on the presentation, because certainly the presentation in the last hack was a differentiator between who went home with prizes and didn't. Because even though we're talking about technical solutions, we're talking about the data, it's the actual point of the hack is to be able to demonstrate how you've met the challenge, and that demonstration is through the presentation. So making sure that that presentation is really capturing what you're doing and explaining it well. It does take a bit of planning, so really don't leave that to the last minute, and probably about 3 hours before the end, just take stock of where you are. In terms of, you know, the solution you might have been aiming for might have been to design a form, to have a data flow, and then to have a visualization where actually you're only just about getting through the first 2. What I would say is actually then just crack on with those first 2, get them nice and polished, and then you can put like a placeholder in the presentation. Everyone knows that the time in a 2-day hack goes very quickly, and instead of just trying to try and rush it all through, just take stock of where you are, and you can explain in the presentation what you'd hope to get out in that last step that potentially you haven't done. So everyone's aware of that, and it's perfectly fine to do that. And then just make sure you're getting the time on your presentation, get that in. And, you know, I would then suggest after you've got it in, you know, maybe just do a lessons learned, even if you want to call the challenge owner or any of the Protecting Success. It's all a good learning environment. So, you know, just being honest and saying what you didn't understand or what didn't work or what was really good. Hopefully you're going to make some good contacts through it as well. And then, you know, as I say, lastly, it's a really good place to come and learn. And you will find a place in your team, you know, whether you're really technical, whether you're that kind of translator, analyst role, or whether in the kind of real world you'd be the kind of end user and you just want to understand more of how it works. So definitely come down, and you know, if it doesn't quite work, the challenge, then this is a really good place to do it, because the next day you don't have to go in and explain to the budget holder why you've just blown 2 days of development time with them. So it's really good. And, you know, if you're in 2 minds, then I'll just say just come down and try it, because I think you'll really surprise yourself. So that's me done.
Excellent, perfect. Thank you, Jamie. That was really good. So now, kind of, guys, we'll move on to the next part. So it's kind of expectations from your first project hack. So we've got a talk from Andrew Dickinson here from Costain, who will give you some insight into what it was like for his first hackathon, and kind of how he will approach the next hackathon.
Right, thanks. Hello, everyone. Yeah, Andy Dickinson. I'm one of the apprentices on the course. So at the time of Hack 7, I was probably about only a month, I think, into my course. So didn't really know what to expect from a hack. So I've got a couple of slides here. These are my expectations, loosely based on a form of imposter syndrome. And so my standard caveat might be other people may experience different symptoms. These are mine. So going into the hack, I was certainly not a data analyst. I'm not one now, and I wasn't certainly 1 month into the course. So I was self-doubt there creeping in. What am I doing here? I'm not going to be able to do any sort of Python scripting and things like that. Any coding, it's probably beyond me. So I was worried that I was just going to be sort of drifting along, not knowing what to do. But in the reality, most of the folks that I conversed with there were not data analytics people, and everyone's got something to contribute, whether you're coding or not. And coding is probably only about less than 20% of the actual effort and workload that you're going to get through over the weekend. I think the other expectation was, I'm a newbie to hacks. But perhaps I'll be told what to do. Someone will say, right, okay, welcome, new person, here, sit down, do this, do that, do the other. Well, in reality, no, that didn't happen either. There's plenty of guidance. There's lots of guidance from a great group of people. But I think you need to really know yourself, know what your sort of strengths and weaknesses are, and find your place in a team. You need to self-organize to a degree. And then third expectation I got there on the left is I kind of went in, I'd been prepped, I'd been to the pre-hacked talk like the one we're having now, and we'd had, we'd done a session as the cohort in the apprenticeship. So I kind of knew what the sort of skill sets needed to be within a sort of a successful team, or what we thought it would look like. And I thought, well, we'll just get on Discord. I'll choose my hack. I'll choose my challenge, and I'll put a message out, and I'll sit in one of those chat rooms for that challenge. I'll write. I need a team of people consisting of these people, that people, and they'll come because I've asked them. Well, actually, no, they probably won't. People are going to flock to what interests them. Perhaps the challenge you're interested in, you might just be on your own, or initially, or as I found out on the one I chose, about 15 people piled into this one challenge, and it's like, oh, it's chaos. It felt like for a few minutes anyway, but then a bit of control cuts in from projecting success, and they split us up, and off we went. And it just so happens the split was quite nice, and we did have the right sort of skill sets in the end. So I think maybe the bottom line advice there is network, join chat rooms, introduce yourself, state what you want to try your hand at. And if you can see yourself that there's other people doing that already, try a different challenge, try a different room. If there's a lot of people on that group, maybe suggest splitting into two and collaborating between the two teams. 2 work efforts, 1 challenge. There's no, it doesn't have to be hyper competitive. Can you chuck it on a slide, please, Yoshi? Thanks. So how am I going to approach my next hack? I'm going to broadly try and repeat what I did, but improve in as many areas as I can. So I think I chose a good challenge. It was a challenge that I understood from my professional work, that my day job. So I think I understood the user story, and I had a good feeling about it. And I think I kind of knew what the pitch might be and how that pitch might land. And I think that's pretty key. And I think you've probably heard a few times that people are emphasizing the pitch. And if you have that end pitch in mind, if you've got a good idea what that pitch is, a good vision for it, you can work towards it. I think, but the trick is to collaboratively get your team to join you on that journey. I think the team itself, hopefully you self-organized into a team with the right sort of diversity of skills. Ask yourself, are there any gaps? Are there too many people doing one things? Is everyone in this team a self-starter? And I think that's pretty key, that some people don't need much in the way of sort of prodding in a direction to go and do something. Some people might just know, right, I'm going to do this, you guys get on with that, and off they go. But some people might need a little bit of tuning up, directing towards what needs to be done in your mind. So yeah, I think it's a good to sort of check off in your mind that maybe you've got the right sort of size of team, right skill sets and things like that. The first hours of the hack, I guess, might just slip by like seconds. You know, you might really think, well, I've got nothing done, and it feels like I'm halfway through the first day. But actually finding a right pace, finding a right cadence, if you can get that rhythm going with your team in the first few hours, that's pretty good. Time management is really important. And I think that short sprint model worked well for us, certainly. So we did hit a few sort of bugs, I think, with collaborating. We were on Discord, I think, for that hack. Might not be the same future hacks, but Discord seemed to be suffering bandwidth-wise. It was very difficult to share screens. So we realized we weren't making much progress from working in that collaborative manner on Discord. So what can you do? Maybe ask yourself, can we jump off Discord and go somewhere else? So it happened that we set up a team site on one of our business accounts and invited guests in, you know, other team members, not from our business, but, you know, not on the Costain, you can invite guests into the Costain teams. And that worked well for us from then on, but there's probably other options like using Mural, using the Google sort of ecosystem for collaborating might be pretty good for you as well. But we kind of jumped off Discord pretty early when we realized it was going to grind us and slow us down. I think my last bullet on the right there, I think that one kind of holds a lot of weight for me. If you can express your vision of the problem and the pitch, say it early, state it, you know, I think it should look like this, and try and sell it to your team. If you can sell it to your team what the vision is, and you can rally them, get them behind your idea, the chances are you sell it in the pitch at the end of the day on Sunday as well. So I'd step up with your vision and try and express what you think the best way to sell it is. The pitch is like it's like a business case. You need to selling a product to someone in effect. It's got to answer the client's problem statements. Your presentation's got to communicate the solution. The coding needs to support the presentation. It can't be coding led. Yeah, so you can't do lots of coding and then try and fit a presentation around what you coded. You know, so you can't have the tail wagging the dog. You know, so you can't really finish all your coding until you've got a good idea what the presentation is. And for us, that was kind of Sunday morning, really. We did a lot of data cleaning. Well, the guys doing the coding, wasn't me. The guys doing the coding did a load of data cleaning on Saturday. We had a rough idea of what was going to be, where the target was. And then early Sunday morning, we thought, right, well, we need to get the pitch sorted so we can actually get the final bit of machine learning coding right for the pitch. And we did that quite early on Sunday. So we had a good idea of what the pitch was like from early doors Sunday morning. Yeah, I think closing comments from me is trust your team to fulfill the roles, but don't assume they're making progress. So that regular sprints, come back, reconnect, regroup, kick stuff into a backlog, keep going. Don't worry about finishing everything. You might have a backlog even when you've done your presentation like we did, because we didn't really get our dashboards to work, but we just kicked it into a backlog and we put it in the presentation. Look, you know, we got so far and there's work to be done here, and we just left it at that. And you know, the pitch landed fairly well. So yeah, just make sure you check in with each other and make sure you're all focusing on the right areas, and go for it. Yeah.
Excellent. Perfect. Thank you, Andrew. So guys, now what I'll do is I'll take you through some of the case studies that we've seen throughout the hackathon. So kind of how the teams approach their challenge and what they actually solved. So I think I'll pass over to, I think Matt is first.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. Hi, guys. I'm Matt. I've been a project data analyst at Project Success for approximately 18 months now. I joined the apprenticeship in the first 6 months. So I'm now nearing to the end of my course, but it's provided me sort of an array of skills that is key to my own work and benefits to the hackathon. So generally in this project Hack 7, I was involved with a challenge surrounding predictive hit release modeling. So here we were trying to develop a machine learning model that can predict the probability of a hit using historical project data. So what was the reason behind this challenge? It provides the ability to spot potential issues in a project's lifestyle. In this case, we use data from Jacobs, but this could be applied anywhere. So this challenge was more advanced than others, and I really wanted to test myself. So I've tried to consider myself to try and be a bit more of the techie side and try to get into the coding. Our team was comprised of 5 apprentices from varying cohorts. So apprentices involved from the earlier cohorts were more involved with the technical aspects. So I tried to involve myself like that. But I see no reason why more recent apprentices won't be able to apply the same technical skills as they sort of progress throughout the apprenticeship. So Yoshi, if you could go to the next slide, if that's okay. So the breakdown of our solution. So how do we break down our weekend? So we first started off with identifying the problem statement, which led to the point we could establish around the questions around. Next, we looked at the KPIs, for example, a heat map of key influencers. This sort of helps us to create this user story later on. And then finally, we started to look at the data. We spent time understanding the terminology to then decide what columns and factors are important in the data source. So this is really important to sort of get going. Without that knowledge to start off with, you're kind of just spinning your wheels. You're not really getting anywhere. So it's really important to understand what the data is actually telling you. If you could go to the next slide, Yoshi.
Yeah.
So I'll give like a quick brief overview sort of like of the technical process we did. So first of all, we created a script to clean the data. So this reduced the redundant rows to ensure that the stage of modeling the data does not contain extraneous variables. So this was actually Andrew's challenge as well. So I was on the more techie side of it all. So hope that gives a little bit more context as well. And in terms of sort of the different ideas of it. So Andrew was a lot more of a translator, but he really sort of fitted the code into the presentation, which I think I would struggle with at some cases, which I'm on the apprenticeship for, to try and understand how to also get into that translator role. So the second sort of script we created was used to model the data. We used various tools, as previously mentioned, to create a powerful prediction of whether the project will be a hit or release with a Gaussian neural network. And from this, we identified that the accuracy of the model is approximately 79%, which wasn't too bad, and sort of provides a building block for the future hacks, really. And saying this, generally, if you just press it one more time, Yoshi, I just want to stress basically that the technical part is around 30% of your entire solution. So it's not the end of the world if you don't get something working. Next slide, Yoshi. And it's not either about sort of creating a visually pleasing dashboard. So this is what we started to do, but we actually realized we didn't achieve the use case through the dashboard. We just wanted to make something sort of a bit more visually pleasing. So that's why we had to sort of return back to the presentation. If you could go back to the next slide, Yoshi. And it's all about sort of creating your evidence, really, and explaining your use case in the presentation. So we noticed that the majority of teams sort of fall on this hurdle. So I'm guilty of this as well. So I've been in 3 hacks where I jumped straight into the challenge and I don't really understand the initial problem statement. I just want to start coding. But I'm starting to learn now that's not the way we need to do it. It's so simple, but it's a sort of a critical step that happens. So we also have a use case of our own user story here. If you could play that for a few seconds.
I've called this meeting to try and understand why so many of our projects in this portfolio are taking hits each month, and I'm not getting any warnings from my team leads. Our client demand consistency and predictability, and will go elsewhere for services if we can't improve. Andrew, Martin, can you help me understand the issues on your projects?
Christine, I'm sorry. I find that by the time we get sight of emerging issues, that it's too late to raise early warnings or discuss mitigations with the team without there being some sort of financial impact. Our processes are just too slow to react and we need more time.
Sorry, Christine, I'm in a similar position to Andrew. My hands are tied. I can produce productivity curves and provide you with forecasts, but they aren't very reliable. The forecasts are only based on a basic interpretation of our productivity to date. They're too linear and inflexible.
I wish we had a crystal ball to predict when our projects are going to take hit months in advance.
So basically that sort of user story there, that sort of provided like, it sort of sets the whole story up for the rest of the presentation. So hopefully that helps you to sort of how to potentially introduce your project and potentially get your point across. So the final part, I would like to highlight sort of what the working out is of the future development. So in a project hack, I've added a few examples here of what we could do to further the solution we already had. It's a time to suggest sort of richer data and focus on an area that could lead to the solution becoming productionized if you don't feel it's already ready. The hack is a fun but daunting event. I always say that I will not get fully immersed, but then my weekend suddenly disappears. The amount of coding I did was ridiculous due to the cleaning, but that's all part of the challenge. You notice that there's so much messy data. Project Success try their best to clean it, but it's also important to understand what it's trying to tell you as well. So you do have to do a bit of cleaning internally. It's also useful to have a look at the challenges before the event to think how you can resolve the challenge and what actions are required. So that's everything from me, and I'd like now to pass over to Katie.
Excellent. Thanks, Matt. But I'll move over to Katie's challenge, which was looking at COVID transmission hotspots.
Yep. Hi. So I'm Katie. I'm a transport planner at Jacobs, and I've been to 2 hacks so far. They were both really different experiences, but both really fun. So for the last hack, I picked this challenge, which was a very topical one, investigating social distancing. And the idea was to take a video feed and use a machine learning model to first identify where people were in the video, and then also to see where they were getting within 2 meters of each other. So we had a video of this street that I've got on the screen as a sample, but the challenge was focused on developing the tool for construction sites. Next slide. When you first start looking at a hack challenge, I think everyone comes to it with different ideas and everyone wants to focus on different aspects of it. So it's very, very important to take some time at the start to come to a consensus on what the challenge is asking for and how you're going to approach it. In my case, there were only 2 of us on the team for this challenge, so that made the management side a lot easier. But it did mean that there was a lot of work for us to do, and we wanted to use the time as well as possible. So the first thing we did was to set up a mural board. And Mural is a site you can use for free to set up an interactive planning board like this. We used it to set out a grid where we could plan all the things we needed to do. So we broke the challenge into small tasks, and then we split it into different categories. So going across the top, we had different stages of the challenge. And going down, most importantly, I think, we split each task into either a bare minimum requirement or medium priority, or just a nice to have that we wanted to put it in, but it wasn't really a big deal. And the ones in green here we did. Some of the ones in gray, we were getting to the end and it turned out we weren't going to have time. So we just scrapped them, and that let us get what we actually needed to get done. So the next slide. So we didn't quite get to everything we wanted to do, but we did succeed in putting together a solution, which was a tool to track social distancing on a construction site. It used video analysis and machine learning. So you can see on the right here, there's a sample video, and as pedestrians come through, the machine learning marks them in a purple box. And that yellow rectangle is the area of interest. So on the left, the positions of people get plotted on the map from a bird's eye view. And we were able to estimate the distance between them then and record every time it was less than 2 meters. And a lot of this was already set up in an open source tool that was suggested in the challenge. So instead of starting from scratch here, we were able to adapt that existing tool and build on it. Cool, that's that one. And this is just an image that we set up the tool to generate. All the red dots here show a midpoint, which was for one frame between 2 people that were violating social distancing. And that gives an overall picture of where the hotspot areas were. But on the next slide, we also set up a Power BI dashboard. And this is where we could get the most insight from the data. So you can see we've got some clear charts and specific numbers on here. We didn't actually have all the data that we needed for this. So we also included some sample data, which was just randomized numbers. And that let us show how the dashboard could look if the tool was used for different cameras and different construction sites. So that's it for my challenge experience. Just to wrap up, I wanted to give a bit of advice, which is just to have fun and do the best you can in the time frame, because it's easy to get caught up and take it all too seriously. but you'll get much better results if you just remember it won't be perfect. And just do the best you can in the time frame and enjoy working with different people and learning something new.
Excellent. Perfect. Thank you, Katie. That was excellent. So moving on to our last case study, guys, and that'll be presented by John Jenkins, who's also part of Projecting Success. John was looking at health and safety incident predictions, and this was a challenge coordinated with Petrofac.
Hi guys, yeah, I'm John. I'm an analyst with Projecting Success. And as Yoshi said, the challenge I worked on at the last hack was to try and predict when a health and safety incident would occur. We had a variety of data of the incidents that have been recorded themselves, kind of KPI metrics, hours worked on site, as well as like training, competence, and absence data as well as oil production data, so we could try and work out if like a high production environment would cause more health and safety incidents or vice versa. And our plan was to produce a predictive model that would give us a heads up if we were running into a situation that was highly likely to generate a health and safety incident. The team was pretty varied, but pretty technical. We had a couple of data scientists. We had a data scientist manager, myself, kind of crossing the boundaries of that with the project management professional as well. So quite a varied team, and overall I'd say quite a strong team makeup. I wouldn't say I expected to have the technical ability that we did. So it was obviously pretty cool to see that in action as well. On to the next one, please, Yoshi. So we jumped in and did some quick exploratory data analysis. I did this one in Power BI. One of the other guys did a bit more technical modeling. I would say it's important to get to know your data. I think Matt touched on it earlier. The cleaning of the data and the prep takes a lot of time, as well as getting to know it as well. You need to know your data before you can make use of it. On to the next one, Yoshi. I'd say that was potentially something we didn't do enough of. One of the data scientists discovered an issue with our plan. So our plan was to make the predictive model of when there would be an incident. However, the data we had was only recording when there was an incident. So we couldn't compare that to all the instances where we're incident free, which didn't suit the method that we'd started off upon. So we had to very quickly pivot, and the guys came up with a plan to work out the probability of incidents happening based on their location, their activity type, that kind of thing. So it became for us a bit more of a descriptive exercise as opposed to a predictive one. What's the next one, please, Yoshi? And it's just an example of one of the output dashboards that we had. Fairly standard one, but we were just trying to show communicating data quite pleasingly visually. On to the next one, Yoshi. And this was a bit more of our kind of interactive, useful one. I'd say definitely the project management professional in our team dragged us back towards the usability of the output and what it would mean to the person who brought the challenge. Like very often, someone who brings a challenge isn't going to be able to understand your models as you've coded them, and you need to make it accessible to them. So this dashboard allowed us to put in the various variables that were relevant to a user, and it gave an output of the probability that had been calculated by our models. And that's just a very quick run through of our challenge. I'd say you've got to be prepared to pivot if needs be, and as has been touched on a lot, the prep work, the getting to know your data, cleaning it, is very important. But yeah, remain agile and pivot if you need to. And that's mine. Thanks, Yoshi.
Excellent. Thanks, John, Matt, and Katie for running us through their case studies. So now I'm conscious we've only got about 10 minutes left, guys. So we'll move on to the final part of the presentation. And one of those is insights from a data scientist. So we've got Ben Morris here, who's a data scientist at Projecting Success, and he'll kind of talk about kind of what it's like for data professionals and kind of why should they get involved.
Yeah, thanks, Yoshi. So just going to quickly kind of cover what's in it for data professionals, why should you attend the hack, and what sort of things are you going to gain from it. So firstly, and a big one is experience. So it's going to give you the experience of working with real data sets, working on real problems. There's a lot of kind of publicly available data that's used in kind of tutorials online and competitions that's nice and clean, easy to work with. The problem's really well framed, you know exactly what you need to do. Often with kind of real life data sets, that's not the case. There's a certain amount of cleaning that needs to be done, and kind of taking that problem and developing a solution to it is more than just fitting a single model. So I think one of the big things is gaining the experience of working on kind of real problems. And to add to that, it's also going to help you develop your soft skills. So really important things like communication and teamwork, things you can't learn in an online course. And I think the hackathon is great for giving you that skill set and helping you to kind of learn from that experience. Secondly, and quite an obvious one, I think, is kind of around networking. So the hackathon, we have kind of 100 to 200 people there, so it's a great opportunity to network, build relationships with kind of other data professionals, people you maybe want to learn off, you maybe want to connect with, and sort of discuss things in the future. It also gives you the opportunity to network with people from a massive variety of companies. There's a potential to open up job opportunities. So there's a number of people now that have actually got new jobs through the hackathon. So through either people they've met or the skills they've built and the projects they've worked on. So yeah, it's a great opportunity to kind of build your network, develop relationships, and connect with a lot of new people and companies. And then the third point is around your kind of personal portfolio. So working on these projects is going to give you these experiences, especially if you're a student. It can be really hard to get into data science. It can be hard to get a sort of data related internship or that kind of data related work experience, particularly now with kind of COVID. I guess the options for kind of work experience I would think are probably fairly limited. So the hackathon's a great way to kind of expand your portfolio. It gives you something to put on your CV and gives you that bit of experience. And then the final point, I think, is you can see by the logos at the bottom, that's just kind of a few of the companies that will be in attendance at the hack. So there's some massive companies from a wide variety of sectors, all kind of involved in project delivery. So it really gives you the chance to kind of showcase your skills, show off what you can do in front of these people. A lot of people from these companies are going to be judges as well, so they're going to be judging you and watching what you've achieved over the weekend. So yeah, it's a great opportunity to showcase your skills as well. And then finally, obviously, prizes. So I think Yoshi's going to mention this in a second, but a great opportunity to earn a bit of prize money, and then also an opportunity to earn an internship as well, which I think Yoshi is going to touch on in a second.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. So this presentation, guys, so after all this, why get involved? Why get involved with the hackathon? Like, what is the purpose? So throughout our meetups, we've been conducting a Menti quite a few times to kind of gauge your sort of opinions and kind of what you think about project data analytics and how it's going to impact project delivery. So for some of the feedback we've gathered from members in the community, there's a clear recognition that the future of project delivery will demand data capability. So when we asked you guys, and guys who attended previous meetups, on the extent to which PDA would have an impact on your organization in the next 3 years, 89% of the community thought there would be a significant to a major impact. Now, looking within that, 29% thought it would completely evolve, 39% thought there'd be a significant impact, and 21% thought if I don't adapt, I'll get left behind. Now, if you're looking at that 1% there, I think this is kind of a wake-up call to kind of show that the majority are seeing and kind of believing that this is going to have a huge impact in the way projects are delivered in the future. Kind of moving on from that, we asked a kind of similar sort of question on whether organizations think they would benefit from data-driven insights. 86% of the community believe that they would benefit from data-driven insights. So this kind of shows the importance and the understanding of use cases within projects and how to solve these through data solutions, and how this is key for the future. If you're a beginner or you're experienced in this sort of domain, showcasing what you can do is pivotal for project delivery in the future. So I'll just touch on kind of now the next upcoming event. So Project Hack 8. So this is on the 20th and the 21st of March, and this is the next hackathon that we have coming up. And I'll cover through what we've implemented and kind of what's different. I think the first thing I think is challenges. So I think, Ben, do you want to kind of discuss a bit more about the challenges that we've got in pipe?
Yeah, so just to give a quick kind of overview and a few ideas of the challenges that we're going to have at Project Hack 8. So I've just pulled out a couple of areas, and most of the challenges are kind of still in the sort of development pipeline. So not all finalized, but firstly, risk. We've got a few challenges around risk. So one on around developing a sort of risk management timeline visualization. So a kind of neat visualization tool to allow you to visualize how your risk kind of changes throughout the life cycle of a project. And the idea is that it is potentially a tool that could be used to kind of help risk managers to understand kind of how they've estimated risk throughout a project. And then also another challenge around a risk voice capture app. So a kind of voice activated workflow to allow us to capture risk and kind of make that process a bit more efficient and save the manual effort. The second area is RFIs. We've had quite a number of companies really interested in working with us to develop some challenges around RFIs. So particularly things like causality of RFIs, so what kind of project factors are leading to either an increased or a decreased number of RFIs. So how can we kind of improve this design process? And then also kind of understanding design queries, understanding which designers are maybe seeing more or less RFIs, so we can start to see which designers are kind of performing better or not. And then finally, we've got a few challenges surrounding cost, so kind of cost estimation for a project, and then also understanding kind of the price of key materials as well. We'll have about kind of 15 or 16 challenges in total. This just covers a few of them, so there's lots more kind of still in development, but hopefully that gives you a quick understanding of the types of things we've got coming up. Excellent, thank you, Ben. Moving on, guys. So what else can you benefit from with the hackathon? So we're having a summer internship. So for those who are impressed with the hackathons, we can kind of get them involved with a summer internship with Projecting Success, so ourselves, and they'll be paid a living wage. They'll learn to leverage PDA and data science on real project challenges, and receive supervision from expert data and project professionals to build their skill set and their CV. So it's all an incentive to get involved and join. Kind of moving on from that, for the majority, there are prizes again. So this time around for Project Hack 8, we have £5,000 worth of prizes, and the prize pot is allocated £3,000 for the winner, £1,000 for second place, £750 for third place, and £250 for fourth place. So that's how we've allocated the prizes. So there's a lot up for grabs here, guys. So again, prepare, and I hope this presentation has helped you prepare for that. And for those who haven't attended, you might have the advantage to try and push on and win that the £3,000 at the top. One more thing at the back of the hack. So we're looking at developing a PDA solution center, and I would like to invite my colleague John, who will discuss a bit more about that.
Yeah, thanks, Joshie. Just very quickly, I know we're running out of time a bit. Obviously, the hacks produce lots of high quality output. A lot of the challenge owners are very happy with what is coming out of them. What we're finding is that a lot of the challenge solutions aren't making it through to production or use within industry. So we are currently exploring an option to create a kind of online repository of these solutions. And I think there'd be a number of different categories, but one of them would certainly be to where the challenge owners and participants agree, of course, to put the solutions in their current state up there with the challenges, let people take them away, work on them further, and see if they can get the benefit of the initial work that's been done by the hack and take them through to being viable, useful solutions. Alongside that, we'd probably be looking to host a number of our own solutions, bespoke to project data analytics, and make them available to the community in an attempt to democratize the industry and really get things moving, just to try and help out the community and the industry as a whole. And